Hey everyone, welcome back to Neighborhood Bible University. I'm Carrie, glad to be back here again with you, and we're looking at Neighborhood Bible University NVU episode 7. 5, 7. Yeah, okay, episode 7. Here we go. So you heard hopefully in our last episode, episode 6, from Pastor Ron, and we're going to pick back right up where he left off. So let's dive into God's Word and see if I can share the screen here with you. Okay, so here we are. We're looking into, oops, there, that's visible, right? So Neighborhood Bible U, here's some helpful background info if you haven't got it already. We're going to look at the outline of just to see where we are in the book of Philippians right now. So we already looked at the intro. Right now we're in this section here, News from Paul, his missionary update. We looked at this earlier, and now we're in this subsection, chapter 1, verses 18 through 26. Right now we're going to focus here on Paul's ambition, 18 through 20. And as we do so, we just remember the main theme of the book. How could Paul and his Philippian friends find joy in the middle of all their trials? In difficulty, they could, in spite of their circumstances, by knowing Christ. How can I be happy when hardships grow? In Jesus, it's all about who you know. So that's going to guide all of what we do here. Here's where we were last week with Pastor Ron leading us through talking in that first section. So now we're going to look here and see how we can break this passage down. So Paul starts here in chapter 18. He says, "What then? Only that in every way, whether in pretense or in truth, Christ is proclaimed. And in that, I rejoice." He does say that, and this really is his main theme here. He's saying, oh, I'm so looking forward to Christ being proclaimed. So that's what we're focusing on here. Proclaimed, what is he talking about? He's actually sharing the gospel, proclamation, to share the good news about Jesus. What is that? That Jesus came incarnated as God into human flesh, came, walked around, met us all, showed us how to live, lived a perfect life, but then he died on the cross and made a way for us to be good with God once again, solved our fundamental humanity problem of sin, and he rose on the third day, proving that he was God and that everything he said had been true, and now he gives us a hope for the future. So that's the gospel. That's the good news about Jesus. And this is what Paul's referring back to in verses 15 through 17, like Pastor Ron took us through. This proclaiming Christ is the sharing the gospel. And what Paul's saying here in 18 is that there's people in Rome, preachers, other pastors, who are sharing about Jesus, and they're sharing the good news, but it's out of envy and rivalry. Paul's saying, I'm rejoicing, not that they're sharing out of envy or rivalry or selfish ambition. I'm rejoicing that they are proclaiming Christ at all. You know, the gospel is such good news that someone preaching it poorly, it's not going to make it completely ineffective. The message of the gospel is so good that at least it's going out. At least people are meeting and learning about who Jesus is, and that could bring them hope and healing. So Paul's saying, I'm rejoicing about that. I'm really excited. Then, after he talks about his present joy, he starts to move into talking about his future joy. How do we know his future? He says, I will rejoice, coming on up. And this is going to be a whole new section because he's already talked about how he is rejoicing. Now he's going to rejoice in the future. Why is this a whole new section here when we're still in the middle of verse 18? Well, what happened is there's a monk who started dividing the Bible into verses back in the Middle Ages, and he loved the Lord and he was doing his best and he had a team around him, but the resources just weren't that great back then compared to what we have now with the internet and all this Greek and Hebrew and vast resources and all the archaeology we've discovered since then. So now as we read through the passage with our knowledge, we can figure out that it's probably best to just make a break halfway here because Paul changes topics. This verse here, yes, the Greek word is alad. It means moreover or in addition, I will rejoice. So he's talking about a new reason that he's about to rejoice now. So that breaks us into a new section here. Why is Paul rejoicing in a new circumstance? He says, for I know that through your prayers and also the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this will turn out for my deliverance. Ooh, as it is my eager expectation and hope. So what is Paul talking about here? Here he says, I will rejoice because I know that this will turn out for my deliverance. This is actually a phrase that comes from Job 13:16. So and Job was vindicated in the end. God did come and help him out and restore his fortunes and everything. So Paul has an idea that his deliverance is going to be out of prison. That's what he needs to be delivered from. What is his situation? He's in prison for the cause of Christ. He's in Rome awaiting trial from Caesar. And so what he's saying is, I'm hoping I'm going to be delivered from prison. Now, this is the word here in Greek deliverance. This is the word soterion. That is the word that means salvation. So some might think, oh, maybe Paul is talking about he's going to be saved. He's hoping for his eternal home in heaven, that God will vindicate him and not at the end of all things. Paul's actually just using this in the most common usage in the Greek New Testament and in usage overall in this first century Greek. He's saying, I'm just hoping to be delivered out of my current situation, taken out, rescued out of it. So he's saying, I want to get out of jail. I want to be acquitted. And Paul's saying, how is that possible? How can I rejoice that I will be delivered out of prison, out of jail right now? There's a couple reasons. He says, one, through your prayers. Paul's saying, man, I know, Philippian Christians, that you have been so helpful to me and that we've been able to be partners in ministry, chapter 1, verse 4 and 5. So I've prayed for you and you can pray for me. Pray for me that I'll get out of jail. Next, he says, I want to get out of jail, and I think I will because I have the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ. This is Holy Spirit, third member of the Trinity. And he's going to help Paul and has encouraged Paul to be delivered from this situation. He is the Spirit of Jesus Christ because he's the same Spirit that indwelt Jesus through his earthly ministry and empowered him for the things that he has called him to do too. So Paul's excited for that. He says, this will turn out for my deliverance, as is my eager expectation and my hope. Oh, I can't wait to get out of prison. Then he says, I know I'm going to get out of prison. And then he also says, I know that I will not at all be ashamed, but with full courage, now as always, I hope that Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or by death. Does that sound familiar? Christ will be honored in my body. That's pretty similar to up here, Christ being proclaimed, right? And Paul's going for that again. He says, Christ will be honored, and he wants the gospel to continue going out. This is a gospel language of going out again. So Paul, he knows that he's going to be delivered from prison, and he knows that he's not going to be also ashamed. By ashamed, he means he's not going to be ashamed of the gospel. Not only is Paul excited to be acquitted and set free and proclaimed innocent in this trial to get him out of jail, but he actually he's actually excited for how the gospel is going to be proclaimed innocent too. You see, if Paul is innocent and let free out of prison, then by implication, they're saying the reason why he was put in prison preaching the gospel, well, that's okay too. That the gospel is not this subversive, treasonous message that's infecting the Roman Empire, but that the gospel is actually life-giving and freeing and hope-bringing too. So Paul's excited not just to not be in prison anymore, but he's excited for opportunities to share the gospel with other people outside of prison, and he's excited for the implications of the gospel being deemed okay if this trial goes through with acquittal. So that's exciting too to think about. He says, with courage, as now with always, Christ will be honored in my body. Back to this word here, will be honored. This is a Greek word. It's all one word, and it's a future tense. It's let's see here. It's mega lunthesetai, and if you notice the prefix on it, mega, big. What this word means is that Christ will be made big. Now, God. Jesus is already God. He can't be made bigger. But what Paul is saying is he wants to increase the people who know about Jesus, to increase the awareness of Jesus, to increase the gospel going out. So the more and more and more people, if the amount of people can be increased, those who have heard about Jesus and the life-giving message of the gospel about him, then That's what Paul's excited for. That's what he's all about. And this is a similar idea to Christ being proclaimed, right? So Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or by death. This is just Paul saying, man, I am all in. I'm 100%, no matter what it takes, with all that I am. I want the gospel to go out. So Paul is saying that, and he's going to actually give a lot more interesting details. He's going to spiral off on this awesome rabbit trail from this idea of life and death down here in these other verses. But I want to leave those for our next NBU teachers. So tune in for our next episode coming up later. Thanks for joining us again for NBU, and we hope that you can find a lot of other great resources on our website here at our church, neighborhoodchurch.com/Phil, Phil, for Philippians. We'd love for you to find those resources too. I hope that as you see Paul's passion for the gospel going out, that people can find the hope and the healing that they need to get through difficult times, that they can find the joy that Paul had. I hope that you can find that joy too and share that joy with others. Thanks for joining us today.